Hey, this is Maggie.
And this is James.
And you're listening to Directors on Tap,
the podcast where we sit down weekly to discuss film industry news, new favorites, and what we're watching.
Today we're talking about WandaVision and the Trial of the Chicago 7. We also touch on a new film concept that we have in development and the recent story that inspired it.
Well, we just watched the latest episode of WandaVision this morning. Mags got up much earlier than she's used to in order to do it, and so did I. And what'd you think, Mags?
I thought it was pretty good. I thought, well, this episode was 80s, so I liked how the style of dialogue still works the same through each decade, because I know the references and some of the slang from each decade are incorporated and changed with each episode, but there's still the same style, which I think is cool because they still make that work for the characters. It doesn't feel like they're out of place with the time change.
They do a very nice job of having the characters not feel like completely new characters every time jump, even if they're not necessarily always using the same vocabulary. And I'm curious. I was thinking when we were watching the episode, I was curious I wonder if the recasting Pietro thing, I wonder if that was always in their initial plan, or if for whatever reason they couldn't get the guy who initially played Pietro back, and then they realized, oh wait, we have two actors for this since we bought Fox, and that was their solution, or if that was their plan the whole time, was to use the Fox actor for him instead of the Disney one. No,
I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't know much about any of that deal, so.
Yeah, also some of the I thought it was topical that it was a Halloween episode, because they did some creepy stuff, especially with Vision, and how to say it without spoilers. He did something he shouldn't have, and it wasn't going too well for him, and it was kind of freaky. And I heard Mags be like, I think you were like, ew, or oh, when it was happening, you reacted.
Yeah.
And it was disturbing, but it was a really cool effect too. Once you guys watch the episode, if you watch it, you'll know what we're talking about. So I thought that it being Halloween and some kind of freaky stuff happening was a good meshing of the plot with the situation that they put the characters in. And man, there's a lot to talk about this episode, but a lot of it's spoilery, so it's difficult, a lot of stuff happened.
I really liked the change of locations, because a lot of the other episodes kind of stayed out of, they stayed in their neighborhood and around their house, but there's a part in the episode where they go out on Halloween, and the streets definitely have those 80s vibes. And I was gonna say, it reminded me of the shot in Back to the Future where they're standing in the middle of the street with the theater in the background after Doc sends him back, or sends him into the future, and there's the theater in the back, which it looked almost exactly like that in the one specific shot when they're, I think it's they're oh no, that one was when they're meeting with their kids in the street, but then there's another shot where Wanda and her brother are sitting on the hay bales in the town square, and the main piece of the background is the theater with the neon lights.
Mm-hmm. I didn't catch that, but
okay. It
I'm
was so
sure,
bright.
I don't know how. Well, I don't know how
I don't know. I just thought they did a good job of incorporating the styles into the time periods.
Yeah, the Back to the Future thing I didn't catch, but I'm sure it was intentional for you to notice it. Yeah, because I don't know how I missed it. But this doesn't even make much sense, but the streets thing gave me Goosebumps vibes, which doesn't really fit. I know it wasn't at all trying to emulate that because Goosebumps was 90s, but that just reminded me of the episode about the haunted mask in Goosebumps, which I don't know if you ever watched those as a kid.
I didn't watch Goosebumps.
Wow,
Was that a book?
It was a book series that was adapted into a movie.
Okay, I think I might have read the books.
The books, yeah. So there was the books, and then there was a TV show.
It just sounds familiar. It makes me think of elementary school, so I might have read something. But
yeah, you probably did in elementary school. I remember, like lots around like maybe 6th, 7th grade. Like everyone would read Goosebumps. Anyways, back to WandaVision. Man.
Well,
yeah,
I liked the contrast between the desaturated background and like the bright colors of the costume design.
Mm-hmm. And
which is like that's totally 80s. Like I like even with the grass and the jack-o'-lanterns, like those were all like desaturated, and then the costume design was pretty bright.
Mm-hmm. And the scene where Pietro and her sons were like stealing candy and smashing pumpkins while Sherbert was and I know he's Herbert, but I'm still calling him Sherbert. Sherbert was like talking and like saying like this is happening, and like the way they cut that all together was was like perfectly 80s like sitcom thing. He's like, it's like the pumpkins are all smashed, and then they cut to them smashing the pumpkins. And yeah, that was spot on 80s. And I thought they did that very well. And also with that intro with the kid talking to the camera and you know, all that whole
about 2 seconds after they had that specific shot, just the first shot of him with the camera, I was like, yep, 80s.
Yep, very much so, very, very much. And
that commercial was the commercial they'd play.
That was so dark, which I'm sure that was. I know. Yeah, like I mean, it reflects the show getting darker and more screwed up. That the commercials are getting darker and.
Wait, that was probably
what?
Alluding to the. Vision.
Oh, what was?
I bet you that is.
What was the name of the brand? Because the brand names are usually relevant to the story in the commercials. Because
it was the yogurt, wasn't it? I don't remember what it was.
What was it? I don't know, but
that's totally I just realized that.
Yeah, for sure.
So like in the episode, you explained the commercial.
All right, there's this. It's this 80s style stop motion clay animation, and this kid's just on this island by himself, this desert island, and he's starving. And then the shark pops out of the water, and he's like, "Are you hungry?" Well, I used to be hungry, but now I eat this yogurt. And he gives the yogurt to the kid, and the kid can't get the yogurt open. The shark goes away, and the kid's just slowly starving to death trying to get this yogurt container open. And then he dies and turns into a skeleton. And then it goes like, buy the yogurt. And then the commercial ends.
Wait, him opening the yogurt's probably like, he never got it open. So maybe that's like Vision going into leaving the field. Oh no.
And he never gets out. Oh no.
Yeah, wow, this is I just realized that. I just connected all the dots.
Me too. Don't feel bad because I didn't connect it until you started connecting it. That's interesting now I want to think about what else did we miss like that.
Well, I think if we missed anything else, I'm sure it was subtle because I'm also not super educated on Marvel Easter eggs or whatever, so I probably wouldn't catch it anyways.
Well, I liked, speaking of just like, I guess, Marvel stuff, I thought it was like an obvious choice, but it was still funny they did it, that their Halloween costumes were like their classic comic book costumes, like from their original versions. With like Quicksilver wearing the Quicksilver costume, Wanda wearing hers and Vision wearing his. This is so 70s. It looks so goofy and I love it because, or was he? Yeah, he's a 70s character if I remember right. But yeah, I liked that. And the people standing still, and like I like how it so as he was like reaching the edge of the hex, how like it went from people repeating actions to then being completely still. I liked that progression, that it wasn't just all of a sudden people are completely still, that it like slowly progressed towards
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I liked that the two shots of, there was one shot where the lady, what is she doing with her arm? She's going like this,
so
swinging it back and forth.
She was hanging up the the ghost decoration, how it has a clip on the clothes that goes on the clothesline.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so she kept like lifting it and then putting it down.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked that shot specifically because of the tear that is like coming down from her eye, the single teardrop, and then it cuts to Vision, and he's they're doing like a zoom on his face, and this like ominous music just starts up. So I don't know. I like the way they cut that.
Yeah, I very much liked that scene. I thought the tear looked a little too artificial, but other than that, whatever.
It did. I think it was like really bright on her face.
I think they probably came up with it in post, and then they were like, "Oh, we should add a tear," and like they didn't.
Well, they also want to make it like obvious that it's a tear, like so people don't miss it. So maybe that's why.
They might have exaggerated it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I cannot get over just Steve Carell staring over your shoulder. Guys, I know this isn't a video version, but Mags has a Steve Carell poster behind her where he's saying that's what she said. And the way the camera's angled, he's just like standing over, looking over her shoulder at me. And so
he looks like he's like expecting something.
Yeah, like he's like, all right. He's like, come on, James, you're gonna have to pick this up a little bit. You're not being a very good.
He's got a mic in his hand too.
He does. Oh, he is. You know, he's contributing greatly to it. We turned off his mic because we were afraid that he would say something that we wouldn't be able to publish. Don't tell him that.
The last thing I have in my notes is just about the aspect ratio, because they changed it, and it like started to blend more with the outside world because it's closer to that aspect ratio. But it's still like distinguishable because of the look of the different worlds. So I like that. Before it was noticeable, but I didn't even notice it this time. So I don't know. I like how they seemingly changed the aspect ratio. Like it's kind of subtle, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree. You don't know. No, I agree. I completely agree. It's definitely nowhere near as prevalent as we get closer to current day's TV style, but it's definitely still there. And it's just definitely still there. Sorry guys if we seem a little out of it. Like we said, we got up earlier to watch this episode. So we also watched The Trial of the Chicago 7, written and directed by Aaron Sorkin. And what did you think of that, Mags? First impressions?
I think the cast stands out. I think they did a really good job casting. The acting performances were very good.
I think it's funny.
That was my initial like. That's just the thing I think of and the dialogue, of course, because it's Sorkin. But
I think it's funny that that's the first thing that you mentioned that you liked, because I remember when I was watching it thinking, I think the casting is good and the performances are good, but at the same time thinking like nothing really felt like a standout amazing performance to me. Like it wasn't bad.
I didn't think they were amazing. I'm just saying that's what was like. I thought the performances were great. I didn't. There's nothing that I'm like, oh, this was amazing about the film, which I don't know. It got really good reviews, so I kind of expected more, but I still liked it.
Oh yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I think the writing was extremely, extremely good. The dialogue was amazing. I felt like its weakest points were in the editing and the direction, because sometimes it didn't seem like it knew what it wanted to do in terms of how the scene was meant to play out or end or progress. Because the one that stood out to me the most, I think I even mentioned when we were watching it, I was just like, that was a rough transition where like they had some like dramatic line to end the scene, and I'm sure it looked great on paper, but then it was just this awkward silence after it that wasn't dramatic. It was just awkward. And then it did like this fade to black, which was a little too slow. And it was like,
Yeah, that was. They either should have drawn out the fade to black or just not have done it at all. I think not have done it at all. It was so out of place.
The pacing just died after that last bit of dialogue.
It was like going up and up and up, and then they just cut it. It was like,
and like, and it wasn't even like a dramatic break, like how some films will do. They'll ramp it up and then cut it just as like dramatically to like give that contrast. Like this one was just, it just died. It was,
and that scene, I thought that scene was great. Like I thought that was the first time that we heard. What was his name? Was it?
Oh, I'm terrible with names.
Oh man. Yeah, Abby Hoffman.
Abby Hoffman, yeah.
He had the longer hair.
Yeah.
I like that scene. Like I thought that was the first time that we see him we see him as like
other than just like the stereotype yippee.
Yeah, like up until that point, he's like you don't really like feel anything for him or like he's kind of just the character to like aid
comedic relief.
The comedic relief. So like in that scene, you actually like get to see what he thinks and feels about the situation. So I thought the acting in that was great. I thought the dialogue was great. So like to get that fade to black really quickly was it just didn't work, and it was disappointing.
I completely agree. It sort of it just kind of killed the end of the scene. But yeah, I mean everything else was very well done. Like the cinematography was definitely above average. I think it just really was suffering a bit from, not mediocre is not the right word, just not, I guess, not, you know what it was? The direction and the editing wasn't on the same level as everything else. And that's what made it feel out of place to me. Does that make sense? Like it wasn't bad by any means, but like the writing was so good. The acting performances were very good. And then it made the fact that the direction and editing kind of felt bland. It made everything else. It emphasized the fact that both of those aspects were kind of bland.
Yeah, I think the direction was, especially in the courtroom, for some reason, I feel like there were just like a lot of wide shots maybe. I don't know. That's what I think of when I'm thinking of those scenes, and I'm like, yeah, that was kind of bland.
Yeah, like
they had close-ups and stuff, but it was just like there were a lot of wide shots, which I get because it's like the courtroom, but it's just
it seemed very formulaic and like and like, oh, we got to go to a close-up for this, but it wasn't for like some creative dramatic thing. It was like, because that's the conventional time to use a close-up.
Exactly.
And it also felt like, I can't remember what the context of the scene was. It was when they had one of the witnesses on the stand. I can't remember which one, but it was also a point where I noticed, I was like, a lot of this cutting is unnecessary, where like within the span of 2 seconds in a slow paced scene, they cut between 3 shots. And I was like, because they were like, quick, show the lawyer, or the prosecutor. They're like, prosecutor, interrogate the person on the stand. Then they went to the jury, back to the prosecutor. And it was like, we could have just held on one of those, and because we gained no information from the other 2 shots. It was just, you just cut for the sake of cutting. We didn't get reactions. We didn't get information. It was just, there was no point to cut between those.
Are you talking about the scene in the beginning where, what's his name?
Describe him.
Joseph, the actor.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He, is that what you're talking about when he has to explain to his opening statement to the jury?
I think it might be the opening statement. Or no, because there were a lot of cuts in that one too. Yeah, there was. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think it was the opening statement though that I was thinking of, but you're also right about the opening statement.
Okay, yeah, so like I was gonna say the scene that like stands out in my mind from this film is the one where Tom Hayden says that he can take the stand, but William Kunstler doesn't think he can. And they like start to act it out as if William were the judge. And so like the dialogue pacing and the acting performances in that specific scene were like impeccable. I thought like I loved it. It was like very intense, especially with the like back and forth between the flashbacks to the rally and the present day of them arguing.
Yeah, that was very well done. That, you know what, that moment is what the direction and editing of the rest of the movie should have been.
That's the first scene that I think of when I'm like, what was great about this movie? Like I really love that scene, the way they edited it and the acting, dialogue, like it was all great.
Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of, I think this was the only weak point in the dialogue. And I think it helped showcase even more when some of the weaknesses in the direction of this movie was the attempted rapist dude who kept harassing that one woman. They had 2 lines every single scene they showed up in, and they never said anything else. And I was like, okay, Sorkin, they've said this line 50 times. They've been in several scenes. Come up with something different, please. Like, because like I feel like even as like first that's just like the writing's fault, but then it's also when you're on set and directing, after the 4th time, I feel like you should be like, this needs to be adjusted.
Like, I don't even know which scene you're talking about.
So remember how the one girl had the flag on the march and the 2 dudes kept saying,
okay, never mind.
The exact, yeah. So they kept saying the 2 things was, one, make me a sandwich, and like put down the flag or whatever. Maybe one other line, but it was always the same 2 or 3 things repeated every single scene. Never any variation in how they said it, or it was always in the same order too. And it was like, oh my God, this is the 5th time we're seeing these people. Please add some variety. No one talks like this. Like,
yeah. Well, I was gonna say something about Sorkin, but now you're
I think that was
talking about his.
I think that was very uncharacteristic of him, though. That's the thing. It's because he's normally amazing at dialogue, and the rest of the dialogue is amazing. But that, I don't know what was going on with that.
Well, I was gonna say, since maybe some people don't know a lot about Sorkin, so like something he always says is that this is not quote unquote, but it's pretty close to what he says in interviews most of the time. That dialogue isn't music to him, it like really is music. Like that's usually what he says. And so like in almost every scene, the dialogue always has this back and forth build up that creates the same tension every time. And I've like really only seen that with Sorkin. It's very specific, so I love his style of writing.
Yeah, he definitely has the sort of this. I'm trying to think of like comparable authors. I can't think of any in film off the top of my head, but he sort of has that sort of Shakespearean and like Edgar Allan Poe attention to the way the dialogue sounds as it's being said is just as important as what is being said and the interplay back and forth. And he definitely pays very good attention to that. And it definitely enhances just the general feel of the dialogue. And it's much more engaging when it's like audibly pleasant to listen to and not just to mentally engage with. If that makes sense. Yeah.
He does, I don't know how to explain it, but he does this thing with, there's almost like, you could like break up the dialogue into these like small, like few sentences where there's like one character says something like in this like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, it's almost like the character, like the dialogue is meant to be said fast. Like they're like climbing this mountain and they like get up to the top and then it goes back down again and then it goes back up. Like I don't know, the way he does that is I don't know how to describe it, but it's great.
I wonder, that makes me wonder if he does something similar to what Spielberg says that he does on set, where in order to facilitate that type of ramp up in editing, what Spielberg says he does is, in addition to his normal takes, he'll have the actors do a couple of fast takes where he says, go through the dialogue as fast as you possibly can while still acting. And then he says he'll do whisper takes where he's like, okay, now be as like slow and low as you possibly can. And that made me think how you mentioned that that Sorkin has that ramp up a lot in his dialogue and the ramping down. And I wonder if he does something similar on set where he separates it by take so he can pick, performances for each shot, cutting back and forth, particularly for the intensity that he wants. Or if he just or if he just tells the actors keep ramping up this way, then at this line. There's a bunch of different ways he could do it. But got me wondering if he takes the Spielberg approach to it.
Maybe.
I don't know. I haven't seen him mention that in any of the interviews I've seen of him. But I don't know. Well, let's write him some fan mail. Be like, excuse me, do you use this approach?
The next thing is kind of a spoiler. I guess it is a spoiler because it's talking about the end of the film. But
gotcha.
I love how they added. I don't remember his name, but it's like Tom's best friend, the guy with the glasses.
Yeah.
He sits in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning of the movie, he's like writing down how many Americans have been killed since the day they were arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't like serve much of a purpose than that. Like, he doesn't think much of it, except he does say like, he says something like, with the trial starting, it might be easy to forget who this is about.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. And so like by the end, when Tom is giving his closing statement to the judge and he like wants it to be quick, he like instead reads aloud the names of the fallen. So I thought that was like a great way to end the film. It was kind of unexpected though.
Yes.
Like I didn't think it would end that way. I expected more of a dramatic ending than that.
Yeah, that was definitely.
But I liked it.
Mm-hmm. It was definitely a full-on Chekhov's gun thing, like we were talking about.
I was just gonna say that, James.
Yeah.
I literally wrote down. I said this is literally what I wrote. I said we were just talking about last night with Chekhov's gun, within our own story, which we're working on right now. We might be able to talk about that at the end of the episode, but yeah, we were just talking about that last night, so that's what I thought of.
Yeah. Speaking of the ending, I liked that ending, like courtroom. I did not like that it then cut to the stereotypical, let's have like 50
wide
walls of text explaining stuff over a wide shot. And then I was like,
I didn't like that.
I was like, you went there. I was like, come on, you're a better writer than that, man. Wrap it up better than that.
I did not expect
The Hangover ends better than that with better writing, where they I was like, where it incorporates the credits and then showing the photos of what happened that night. And I was like, come on, you can't be upstaged by The Hangover, Sorkin. What are you doing?
Yeah, that was kind of a cop out. Okay, wait, I think you should explain the Chekhov's gun.
All right.
Because I don't think everyone knows what that is.
All right. So for those of you who don't know what Chekhov's gun is, it comes from a Russian writer, Chekhov. What's his last name? I can't remember. But the point is, he was making a point about how everything in a story should be relevant to the plot of the story or themes, that there shouldn't be anything in there that's not 100% necessary. And his example was that if there's a gun on the mantle, it needs to be fired by the end of the story. It can't just be there and never be used. It's got to have some relevance. And so that led to the term for this in writing, something being seemingly irrelevant set up at the beginning, like the guy saying like, oh, I'm just writing down all these names, to being very relevant at the end, where the closing monologue is him reading off all the names. That became known as Chekhov's gun, since his example for important writing was, if there's a gun in the story, someone needs to fire it. That's Chekhov's gun.
Yep.
So yeah, we've been working on a story, and Mags, what inspired this thriller of a tale?
So, was it 2 nights ago?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it was 2 nights ago. I was looking through my yearbook, and I was just wondering, like, because a lot of my a lot of the people I went to high school with, like, I'll be on Instagram or Facebook, and like their mutual friends are like some of our teachers from the past, and I'm just like, okay, interesting. Like, I kind of always thought that was a little strange, but then I'm like, okay, we're adults, like, yeah, we can add our former teachers, like, why not? And like, if you were close with the teacher, like, it makes more sense. So anyways, I was like curious about a few of the teachers, and I just like looked them up, and I could not find anything on them online. Like, it was like they didn't exist. Like, so then I called James, and I'm like, James, help me find this person.
Yeah.
Like, it was not like a, like, oh, I have to find them. It was just like, I was intrigued because I was like, how is there nothing on the internet about this person?
The message you sent me before you called was super ominous too. I'm trying to remember what the first half of it was. It was something like get on your laptop or like get on Discord, and then you're like, I need to show you something. And it's like,
it was just so weird. Like, I just couldn't believe that there was nothing.
Yeah.
Like, there's usually just at least some kind of information about any person on the internet. It was just so weird.
Yeah.
And
very.
just intriguing. I was just like, and usually something like this, I just like get determined to like figure it out. So I'm just like, we spent a while trying to like, I don't know, just find something about the teachers. Anyways, so at some point in that whole night,
that investigation.
I think I said, yeah, at some point in this investigation, I just said something like, okay, this could totally be some kind of series or movie or something, and then we were like, maybe we should like work on that. So we
so we did.
Then the next day we just got on Discord again, and I sat at my whiteboard, and we basically threw up on the whiteboard with all these ideas for a story, and we've been developing that for a couple days.
When I was looking through the Discord chat again, I noticed that, you know how it shows like the call length? The first time we were sitting down just working on ideas, that was an 8-hour long call.
Wow.
Yeah.
8 hours?
Yep. We did a whole work day.
Yeah. Well, we were really excited. I was really excited to like just get all the ideas out, and we did have a lot of ideas because like once we started writing stuff down on the board, it just kept trickling. So I don't know. It was fun. I think after like getting so much information out and ideas out, we were just burnt out. So yesterday it was kind of hard to like, yesterday it was hard. We kind of like hit a roadblock with ideas. We came up with some good ones though. Anyways, I should probably read the log line. So the log line for our story is: a journalist sets out to uncover how and why her former teacher has been seemingly erased from existence.
It gets into some crazy stuff, some crazy underworld corporate stuff, black market stuff.
Yep.
All kinds of crazy stuff. Investigative journalism is involved.
All right, anything else you want to say about it?
Well, it's looking like it's... yeah.
I'm looking at the doc. Maybe read the plot context. I don't know.
Yeah, go for it. A supposed financial company is secretly experimenting on a young child, giving him the ability to see into remote locations through cosmic windows. But the window works both ways. During one of the trials, he sees into the school at which our protagonist's former teacher works, and they see him too. Wishing to keep their work a secret, the company erases the presence of the teachers. It's as if they never existed.
Well, when we end this podcast, we're getting ready to go downtown to work on this story, so...
Indeed we are. And we're going to go get some B-dubs because I have a gift card. Thanks for listening to our podcast, Directors on Tap.
Next week, we'll be talking about Meg to Five Bloods in the next episode of WandaVision.
As always, you can head over to our Instagram and Twitter page at Directors on Tap to stay up to date with releases of new episodes and get some behind-the-scenes content.
That's all. See you